What was your most used gear in 2021? Your most used camera and your most used lens? Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. The year 2021 is nearing its end soon, and around this time of the year I usually like to take a look at some numbers and statistics that Lightroom can offer regarding my gear, because it's fun and it can also give you some really good and useful information. And we'll talk about that useful information in just a bit, but let me first start by sharing my most used cameras in 2021. But before I do that, I'm eager to hear your experiences too. So please do share your most used cameras and lenses down below. And also let me know if your data offered any kind of surprises, because my data had some surprises that I did not expect. But here comes my most used cameras in 2021. My most used camera in 2021 was or is the Sony a7C, which was not a surprise because I use that camera a lot. I use it for almost all my lens reviews and all my videos, and also for a lot of my personal photography. I bought that camera last June, and now after about 6 months I'm still really happy with that camera. It has been what I expected and no nasty surprises or disappointments so far. However, it was a surprise by how big margin it was my most used camera, because I took almost 4 times as many pictures on the Sony a7C compared to my second most used camera, which is or was this, the Ricoh GR3. I have the GR3 with me almost all the time or wherever I go, and I really do love the form factor, which allows me to take this camera with me all the time, because it fits in almost any kind of a pocket and it's not too much to carry even in your hand all the time. And I'm also always amazed by the image quality or the picture quality that it can deliver. It never disappoints, even in the most challenging situations. And this is a niche camera. It's not for everyone, but for those of us who fit in that narrow niche market, this is almost the perfect camera. My camera is the older version with the 28mm equivalent lens, but I'm really intrigued by also the newer version, which has a 40mm equivalent lens, because together with this it would be a pretty perfect combo. 28mm and a 40mm lens. With those two I could photograph almost anything I ever want to photograph. So these were my most used cameras in 2021, the Sony a7C and the Ricoh GR3. And next let's talk about lenses. And this lens data can offer you some really useful information. For example, let's say you are looking to buy your first prime lens, but you don't quite know which lens to get, which focal length. All you have to do is to take a look at the focal lengths that you use most. Let's say you have a full frame camera and you shoot mostly at around 50mm focal length on your zoom lens, then a 50 is probably your first prime lens. And the aperture data can also give you some indication of which kind of a maximum aperture you are looking for. Let's say you spend a lot of time shooting at the f8 or f11 on a full frame camera, something like maybe 5.6 on a Micro Four Thirds camera, then you probably don't need a really fast maximum aperture. You are good maybe with f1.8 or f2 lens. But if you spend a lot of time shooting at the widest aperture on your zoom lens and maybe even a little bit higher ISO values, then you would probably benefit from a faster maximum aperture, something like f1.4 or even faster. So this lens data can give you some really useful information, for example if you're looking to buy a new lens. But now let's get to my most used lenses in 2021. And here I had some surprises, and I also decided to drop out the first 3 lenses on the top of the list, the most used lenses, because those 3 lenses were all telephoto zoom lenses that I only had on loan for a very short time, and in that short time I ended up shooting thousands of pictures on those lenses because I was shooting flying birds. But that is not what I normally do. And like I said, I don't even own those lenses. So I decided to leave those lenses out of the statistics because they don't represent my normal photography, which is street and documentary and that kind of stuff. So I think the whole statistics get skewed too much if I leave those 3 telephoto zoom lenses in. But there were still 46 lenses left on the list that Lightroom showed me. And of those 46 lenses, my most used lens was this tiny Sony 50mm f2.5G. And I was really surprised that this is my most used lens because I always feel I'm not using this lens enough. However, I really like this lens. It's really well made, it's compact, it has aperture ring, it's sharp, and what's not to like? And I would really like to get also the 40mm version of this lens, but somehow I haven't been able to justify that yet, at least because it's so close to this 50. But I still would like to have it because I really like this lens so much. And my second most used lens was also a big surprise because it was this. Another 50mm lens. This is the cheap, affordable Sony 50mm f1.8. And I also feel that I'm not using this lens enough. But the statistics don't lie. This was my second most used lens in 2021. And the funny thing also is that I'm not a 50mm guy. My favorite has always been a 35. But today I don't even own a 35mm lens, which is kind of strange. I tried a couple of 35mm primes this year, 2021, and I enjoyed both lenses a lot. And maybe I have to consider buying a 35 for myself again and see if I still think it's my favorite focal length. But back to this 50, I also like this lens a lot. It's affordable, it has fast f1.8 maximum aperture, and it's really sharp too. The only downside is that the autofocus is kind of a little bit on the slow side, but in my kind of photography it doesn't matter that much, and it never held me back much. But of course there are many ways to interpret data and statistics always, and if I consider this Ricoh also as a lens, then this would be my most used lens in 2021. And please do also interpret your data and numbers if you have Lightroom or a similar application that can tell you this data, and share your most used camera and lens in the comments down below. I'd really like to see that. I'd like to wish you all the very best and happy and peaceful Christmas and holiday season. Please do stay safe, get some awesome pictures, and I will see you in my next video.